juxtaposed against what we talked about on Monday, that incredible one-man show that Shohei Ohtani put on. But all the pathos, all the drama there of a 7-game series, Gino.
Well, it was just amazing. And it's one of those series, and you hear it all the time, you hate to see anybody lose. And I was texting with Mariners president Jerry Dipoto at 2:00 in the morning after it happened. And it's such a fine line between winning and losing in October. And, I believe a lot of that fine line's at the trade deadline. And Toronto did an unbelievable job of trading for Shane Bieber at the 11th hour, coming back from injury, was still on the 60-day IL, and had some rehab remaining. And he ends up pitching game 7 and winning it for them, and, keeping them in that game. And it just speaks to the little margins that take place throughout a season that end up coming up big in October. They gave up a second-round pick for him, and it ended up playing big for them. But, I feel so bad. I had Seattle really, starting in July, you could start to see that they were going to be the team. And Toronto just did a tremendous job of getting the big hits and keeping themselves in the game with good pitching.
Okay, I'll come back to the World Series, and we'll get a preview and break it down here in just a few moments. But I want to go to the managerial hirings right now. Let me start with the Angels. They give Kurt Suzuki a 1-year deal on that. What do you make of the Angels' decision there with Suzuki?
Oh, I'm just so elated, not only for Perry Manassian, but Kurt Suzuki, one of the all-time great human beings first and foremost, but just a tremendous baseball mind. The day he stepped out of the uniform, he was ready to manage in the big leagues. He's just a man of high character, and I'm super excited. I've texted with him a number of times since the hiring was made, and that's one of those hires that everybody in the game celebrates because he's such a great human being. And I told Perry this morning. This is a pivotal turn for your organization because he's got somebody that he loves working with, that is eager for the job, ready for the job, and he's going to hire a tremendous staff around him. And I truly believe that this is going to be something that turns the Angels organization around in 2026.
You do realize, Gino, that Longhorn fans are happy for him in his professional career, but they're still having PTSD from the 2004 National Championship Series at the College World Series in Omaha when Suzuki led Cal State Fullerton to a 2-game sweep of Texas in the National. He had a monster CWAs that year, as well as Ricky Romero and Jason Windsor, and what those two guys did on the mound. It was absolutely amazing. And
he's a money player, man. He loved the big moments. And what's really going to make him great is he was such a grinder and a self-made player that the accountability piece with the players is going to be big for where they are as an organization. And I just couldn't be happier for Kurt and for Perry Manassian.
Okay, now let's go to the real headline grabber. Tony Vitello. You've known Tony Vitello. I followed his career when he was an assistant at TCU, when he was an assistant at Missouri, and then obviously at Arkansas, and then doing landmark work at Tennessee, which had not had much success on the college baseball front, getting them to the College World Series 3 consecutive years, and then, of course, winning the national championship in 2024. But I have to say, it flat out has shocked what I've read a lot of the baseball world that the Giants wanted to hire him, since he becomes the first ever college head coach to go to the major leagues without a day of major league service time, if you will. Not even talking about a player. I'm just saying as a coach. So I know that surprised a lot of people. What do you know about how this thing kind of germinated and how they landed on Vitello to be the guy?
I'm going to speak to the personal side first, Craig. Tony Vitello called me in September of 2010 to recruit my son to TCU. And as you know, at the time, my wife was going through a really difficult time, been heavily diagnosed with cancer. It was a really dark time in our family's lives. And when Tony Vitello called me, we spent 30 minutes talking about my wife before we even got to baseball. And he is just an incredible human being. First of all, he takes so much care in like detail and organization. And I think about Ron Polk a lot. Like, Ron Polk prided himself on communication with his ex-players, with his alumni, communication with friends that are close to him. And Tony Vitello is no different. He's an unbelievable communicator, an incredible person of integrity. And, another story, my son gets out of pro ball. He sends an email to every college coach in the country. One college coach responded. It was Tony Vitello. So that just speaks to who he is as a person. The baseball side, I applaud Buster Posey, who, you could say, Hall of Fame career, multiple world championships, played for Bruce Bochy. It would have been easy for him to go the traditional route, but I applaud him and Zach Manassian for being a little bit forward thinking and understanding that, hey, look, we need a leader of men first, detail an organization second, and somebody that can bring a group together. And so that's what they believe in him. Is it certainly outside the box? 100%. But when you go around the game and you talk to people that know Tony, they certainly all believe that he's capable of it. I talked to Zach about this 3 weeks ago. I said, the most important thing is going to be that you surround him with a very good staff, because, facing Yamamoto on a Tuesday night's a little different than facing Middle Tennessee State. And so those are the things, the grind of 162 games. Those are the things that are going to he's going to have to get up to speed with, but they certainly believe in him. He's certainly qualified for it. And I would say that this won't be the last. I think that you're going to start, Tim Corbin is certainly qualified to be a major league manager. John Savage at UCLA, tremendously qualified to be a major league manager, and there are others around the country. So I don't think this is going to be the last of it. I think this is just the very beginning.
Well played with the Yamamoto versus Middle Tennessee. Let me ask you one thing, because this is another thing that seems to pop up, and you can tell me if you've heard this. The number one concern for a lot of folks about Vitello stepping into this major league role is how he could relate to, like, say, established major league veterans. I'll throw Rafael Devers out there, for example, that kind of thing, because as we know about Vitello, his fuse runs hot, but he's very inspirational to his guys. His players absolutely love him. But Ryan McGee wrote a great piece on him for ESPN.com where it was entitled basically, "I am not for everyone," was the way he put it. So how do you see that whole dynamic played out with how he is able to be relatable to, veterans with years of service time, in addition to the youngsters coming up?
I think it's going to come down to one thing. He's a great leader. I think it's going to come down to earning players' trust. There's certainly going to be an element of, earning the trust of the players when you haven't been there and done that. But I think as you look over time, you've seen, I think the first example of it was when you started to see major league pitching coaches come out of the college ranks, and they're like, oh, there's no way Garrett Cole's going to listen to this guy, or there's no way Max Scherzer is going to listen to the guy. And they did. As long as you work hard at respecting the player and earning the trust of the player and being able to hold them accountable, I don't care if it's college baseball, Major League Baseball, or a corporate entity. Like, if you're a leader, you're a leader. If you're a manager, you're a manager. And great leaders know how to interact with people and give them respect and give them trust and hold them accountable when they need to be held accountable. And I think that Tony certainly does a great job of that. But there will be a little bit of, earning trust early on. But again, you surround him with the right people around him and his staff, and you put your head down and you go to work, and it's all going to work itself out.
By the way, a producer, Jake Herman, lifetime Nationals fan, growing up in the DC area, starting to get a little antsy, wondering what's going on with the Nationals, both with filling the Mike Rizzo role, the GM role, as well as the Dave Martinez manager role. And it's been kind of quiet over there inside the Beltway.
Yeah, John Taboni, who did a tremendous job in Boston, is going to take over the baseball operations. He's part of drafting Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer and so many of those great draft picks they've had the last few years, and certainly involved internationally. And he's going to take over the baseball operations. They've made a number of changes already in their front office and their player development scouting. So, in that division, it's going to take a little time, but John certainly has the track record of evaluating players, and he'll do well.
Talking baseball with Gene Watson here on 13 Under the Zone. All right, let's shift to the World Series. Starting pitchers have been announced. It'll be Trey Savage going for the Blue Jays. And the Dodgers, they've had Blake Snell rested and ready to go. Snell will go game 1, Yamamoto game 2. Dave Roberts has not decided upon that. I read another piece, Gino, about how these teams are similarly constructed through the farm system and adding key pieces when they've had to. The one difference that I do see is what you spoke to earlier. The Jays were very active at the trade deadline. The Dodgers were not. They believed once their guys got healthy, they would be the guys they would need. And that's been able to bear out the truth as well as what the Jays route is going. So it's two different ways to go about it, and both have worked.
They really have. And what's most exciting about this World Series is it is truly going to be a global event. You've got 13 international players from 8 countries. You've got 2 countries playing, and you're going to have upwards of 15 million people in Canada watching. You're going to have 15 million people in Japan watching. And I think from a growth standpoint, growth of the game standpoint, Major League Baseball couldn't have asked for a better matchup, because this is truly going to be a global event. We spoke about Trey Yesavich last week, and he's going to be the second youngest starter to ever make a start. I was shocked at this. I thought Josh Beckett was younger, but he's going to be the second youngest starter to make a start in the major leagues. Ralph Branca, back in 1947, is still the youngest. Branca, of course, gave up the Bobby Thompson home run in the 51 World Series and is the father-in-law of Bobby Valentine. But this to me, you've got the second most productive offense in the game of baseball versus the 4th most productive offense in the game of baseball. But this, to me, still comes down to pitching. And anytime you can roll, Yamamoto, Snell, Ohtani, that group out for 2 starts, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for Toronto to try to match up. Expecting Yesavich to win 2 games and Bassett to win 2 games and or Gosman to win 2 games is really going to be a tough task. It's going to be a lot of split fingers. A lot of these pitchers, their repertoire is built around the split fingers. So, look for that pitcher to make a mistake early in the split finger, and it can maybe swing a game. But when you look at these rosters, certain things are going to have to go extremely perfect for Toronto to win this series. But I think it's going to be a great series and global and great for the game of baseball.
In addition to the ones you mentioned, Snell, Yamamoto, Ohtani, I kind of look at Tyler Glasnow as being an X factor on this deal if he's able to go, because I think everybody's expecting the other 3 to be able to go 5, 6 innings, maybe even longer.
Exactly. And this I talk about this all the time in October baseball. This doesn't even get into, if you get into a game 6 or you get into a game 7, how you can use, Yamamoto and Snell out of the pen and leverage. And when you look at that game, I just think that Seattle never really recovered from the workload of the 15-inning game versus Detroit. And when you look at that game, the game 7, in some ways, the difference of the game was they had their 3rd best reliever on the mound. Their best reliever was in the bullpen. And truly, Louis Castillo was sitting out there as a starter that could come in and hold it down to get to Munoz. And Toronto went right to Bassett. And so that, in some ways, was the difference of the game in one pitch. And, the industry talks so much about 3rd time through the order for starting pitchers, but we never talk about, 3 appearances in a row for a reliever with 2 pitches and how that looks to hitters. And so it was certainly the swing in game 7. But again, going back to this series, I just think that the Dodgers pitching is it's too dominant. And I mean, Toronto's really going to have to jump these starters and get leads early and put up crooked numbers to have any kind of chance in it.
Gino, I would have told you 2 weeks ago, obviously, the obvious and apparent underbelly for the Dodgers would be the bullpen, and maybe the bridge at the end is. But Roki Sasaki, of course, has now emerged as the closer. If he's on task, is it going to be extremely difficult then to be able to beat this pitching staff?
100%. And I mean, My gosh, Roki Sasaki was in Oklahoma City and just trying to find his way, and everybody viewed him as this high ceiling starter when he came over, and he's kind of found his niche. But that's the thing. And I'm going to say this: everybody wants to talk about the Dodgers and the money's great, but the Dodgers are incredible in scouting. They're incredible in the draft. They do a tremendous job of beating teams in the draft. They're unbelievable in international. You go in and see a minor league team play in September, and their 6-year free agents are still working extremely hard. So, I mean, a lot of teams over history have had a lot of money, but the way they operate and the way they do things, you have to tip your cap to it. And they take a lot of criticism for the money they spend, and they don't apologize for it. But they do a lot of great things the right way. And they're certainly the model for a lot of teams that maybe don't have the salary structure that they have, but the way they operate is certainly a model for the way a lot of teams should be operating today.
All right. You have been largely spot on throughout these playoffs. Largely. You did ride with the Mariners, but you were having your misgivings going into Game 7.
Yeah, I didn't feel good about it. I've been there, Game 5 in 2015. The Rogers Center, the only way I can put it is it's an international melting pot of fans that are extremely passionate, extremely loud, but they don't know a lot about the game of baseball. The baseball fans there are great, but when you get to this stage, it's a little bit of a different crowd. And when we were there, it felt more like an international soccer game crowd than a baseball crowd. But it is chaos for 9 innings and so much fun. So I just love that after 32 years, they're getting to go back. And this is just going to be great for baseball. I hope it goes 7 games. I don't think it does. I think the Dodgers win it in maybe 5, probably 6. But I don't really see a pathway that gets Toronto to 4 wins when you look at the Dodgers pitching.
He's Gene Watson, and he's our MLB insider. So you like the Dodgers in 5.5 games?
I'll take it 5.
Yeah, okay. All right. That means they get a split in Toronto and win the 3 at home, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Hey, I appreciate it as always, Gino. We'll check back in with you.
All right, Craig. Take care. Thanks so much.
You bet. That's Gene Watson.